Hi, my name is Stephen Parmenter. Today I am getting to do my presentation on William Howard Taft. I did a lot of research on him and it was very interesting, these different facts and stories of him that are kind of funny and they were interesting to me, so I actually had a really good time researching and getting to know who William Howard Taft was. William Howard Taft was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, September 15th, 1857. The Taft side of his family, like his father's side, was very known and important. They all had different lines of law background throughout his ancestors. William Howard Taft's parents' names were Louisa Torrey and Alphonso Taft. Alphonso served under Ulysses S. Grant as Secretary of War and Attorney General and was an ambassador under President Chester A. Arthur. So Taft was pretty privileged going to school. Coming from a family that's known, that has a background in law, he had a lot of opportunity. So he went to private school all the way going up until college. And when he went to college, he went to Yale, just like his father Alphonso did. While he was at Yale, he joined the secret society, Skull and Bones, that his father had co-founded in his time at Yale in 1832. So Taft spent his time at Yale and then went to the University of Cincinnati College of Law, and then after that went to the Ohio State Bar Association. And then because Taft had just come out of school with, coming to these prestigious places like Yale and the Cincinnati College of Law and the Ohio State Association, and because he was a young lawyer, being a Taft, he went through the ranks pretty quickly. He started as a county prosecutor and then went on to be a state judge. And then at age 32, he became the youngest appointee as U.S. Solicitor General. After that, he moved his family to Washington for 2 years, where him and his wife met Teddy and Edith Roosevelt. And then a decade later, he became Governor General of the Philippines. So him and his family moved to Southeast Asia for 4 years. During his time in Asia, they got to travel around in China and the surrounding countries and really get to spend time around there and enjoy it. And then while he was there, he improved the Filipino economy as well as the infrastructure, and he expanded a lot of opportunities for governmental participation of the Latinos there. After his time in Southeast Asia, he went back to Washington, D.C., where he became President Roosevelt's Secretary of War. This was, growing up, Taft's dream job, so he was ecstatic about this. But surprisingly, 2 years later, after he had his dream job, Teddy Roosevelt asked if he wanted to continue being the Secretary of War, his Secretary of War, or if he would like to serve as the next president. From my understanding, Taft went really back and forth with the two. It was either, keep this dream job that he had wanted since he was younger, or be the president of the United States. But eventually, Taft was talked into becoming the president of the United States. So the 1908 election, Taft won very easily. Teddy Roosevelt's popularity and his endorsement really translated over to Taft. So it was a pretty easy vote for him, and it was very popular towards him, so he won it pretty easily. While the vote was very easy, his time in office wasn't. Being so involved in law growing up, up through college and all these different positions he'd held, everything was very by the book. So he didn't use the power like Teddy Roosevelt did. He didn't use that presidential power, and he didn't really let that get to him. He just kind of went everything pretty well by the book. He created a policy of harmony with Congress that helped him kind of move through his agendas. But along with this, people were pretty unsure of his stance on big businesses, and they thought he kind of had an odd approach to goods entering the U.S., which resulted in the Payne-Aldrich Act. Yet Taft didn't really trust the Allies, from what I understand. So this really frustrated supporters and opponents of his policy, which, that's pretty much frustrating the country. So it also fractured the relationship between the Republican Party conservatives as well as the progressives, which ultimately led to him losing the Republican majority in Congress. So after his first term was done. While in office, though, Taft was able to impose a corporate income tax that raised national revenue more than $13 million. He also started the shirt sleeve diplomacy, open door policy, and the dollar diplomacy. These were all created to help negotiations between the U.S. and China, and also with Latin America. This basically guaranteed loans to stimulate growth, trade, as well as stability. While Taft did these things, like when he moved to Southeast Asia, and he helped a lot there, Taft's wife, Nellie, also did a lot with her share with foreign relations also. Every spring, you'll see some cherry trees that blossom, and that's because of Nellie, his wife. It was a gift from Japan. They gave seeds for these, cherry trees, so she planted them while they were in Washington, D.C., and now you get to enjoy them every spring. And that's thanks to Nellie. While civil rights was a big deal in this time period, while Taft supported Booker T. Washington's movements to uplift African Americans, and he also endorsed free immigration, as well as used the presidential veto on a congressional law forcing literary test on unskilled laborers. Now here's where I spoke at the beginning with the interesting facts. I did happen to know beforehand that Taft was a sizable man, but I didn't know specifics on how tall and how much he weighed, but it says he was almost 6 feet tall, not even 6 feet tall, but he weighed a good amount more than 240 pounds. And with weight, it sounded like back then it would be, maybe people were drinkers, but it sounds like while he was a president of the United States that he didn't drink. So he just really liked his food, is what they say. People would joke about his weight to him, and apparently that was a cool thing between all of them because it happened quite a bit. He was the butt of all of the jokes. But because of his weight, he suffered from sleep deprivation due to sleep apnea. So he had that. But the one thing I heard that made me laugh was the urban legend says that he got stuck in the bathtub while serving as president. He said he was about 350 pounds at this time. As far as I know, that 350 pounds is true, or about being about 350 pounds, but it sounds like the being stuck in the bathtub is just an urban legend that's probably not true, but I found that pretty funny doing my research. But after he was president, he dropped to about 270 pounds, but with carrying around a lot of weight for a lot of his life, it put too much stress on his joints. So he started using a cane from 1920 on that he was actually gifted to him from a professor. Speaking of being a professor, Taft then became a law professor at Yale for some time. And around this same time, he co-founded the League for Enforced Peace, the League to Enforce Peace. Shortly after this, in the summer of 1921, he got his desired position. He became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he is the only president to hold a seat to this day on the Supreme Court. And on March 8th, 1930, at his home in Washington, D.C., William Howard Taft had passed away. We spoke on a lot of firsts about William Howard Taft, but there's some more. William Howard Taft was the first president to be buried in the Arlington Cemetery, and his funeral was broadcasted on the radio, which is also a first funeral broadcast on the radio. He was the first president to have a presidential automobile, the first to occupy the Oval Office, and baseball is America's pastime, but he was the first to throw the ceremonial first pitch at a baseball game. Now that's very interesting to me because I grew up playing baseball and how recognized the first pitches, having gone to games and watching them, and so that was cool to me that he was the first one to ever throw a first pitch. And then he was also the first president to play golf as a hobby, which I found pretty interesting. But with all these firsts, he was also the last to do something which I found very interesting. He was the last president to have facial hair. Now I had to kind of go back and look because I was like, there's no way. Like, that is crazy. But sure enough, the last president to have facial hair. People think of Taft's presidency as lousy, but put yourself in his shoes and try and follow up how flashy and popular and an icon that Teddy Roosevelt was. There's that, but people don't know is that Taft actually busted more trusts in his 4 years than Teddy did in 8. So that's kind of interesting, and now it's something that few people are aware of. And another interesting thing is that Taft once wrote, "I don't remember that I ever was president." Now, I didn't really understand what he really meant by that, but it's just another interesting piece. But altogether, I really enjoyed getting to learn about William Howard Taft and his life and these interesting facts. And so thank you for listening. I really appreciate it.